Hey all you outstanding grouters, Charlie Lerman here, the Grout Geek, coming at you with an NCFI training session. We're going to go over some single component stuff. Today we're going to be talking about handling of the single component equipment, the safety for it, safe handling of the chemicals, and also how to mix up and clean your pump and store. So let's jump right into it. And of course, as we start everything, we start our days off with a good safety brief. So let's talk about safety. There's really three main things you have for safety. Number one is eye safety, okay? That's the biggest thing. When you're handling single component products, they are water activated. What are your eyes covered with? Water, right? So that's our biggest thing. We want to make sure that we're not getting any grout in our eyes. This is not like a solvent that's going to burn our eyes out or anything like that, but it can bond. It bonds the stuff very well. So you don't want that bonded to your eye. Safety glasses are a great thing. Face shields even better. Goggles are the best thing to be wearing. But it also depends on your application. For what I'm doing here today, safety glasses are totally adequate. With that, you want to have access to an eye wash station as well. So right off screen, just a few feet away from me, here in our plant, I can just walk right over to that eye wash station if anything goes wrong. And this video would probably go viral if it does. But hopefully that's not the case here. So the other thing, the important thing is though, often you're grouting, say down in a manhole in a confined space, you know, in a basement or something, and your eye wash station's maybe a minute away. Have a portable, just a little bottle of eye wash with you so you can be flushing your eyes while you're on the way to the eye wash station. I can't harp on the eye safety enough. That's really the main hazard that we're looking at. Second one is whenever you're working with any type of chemical, this includes polyurethanes, these pre-polymer single component polyurethanes, is skin protection, all right? So wearing gloves, that's the minimal, sometimes a Tyvek suit. You know, if you want, you can go to a Tychem suit if you're going to be in a lot of water. Those are kind of uncomfortable to wear because they are fully plastic. But the thing is, you do want to try to keep this off your skin there. I can tell you though, it is washing machine safe. These pants have seen a lot of grouting, and I typically, if I'm in a manhole, I'll wear chest-high waders. And I find that's great because it allows me to do a lot of stuff in the manhole, keeps me clean, and also keeps all the chemical, water, poop, all that other good stuff off of me. The last thing with safety, and it's weird that I even had to mention this, but it's come up a couple times in my 20 years of career, is don't eat the product. You know, again, it's weird that I have to say that. It is potable water rated. It is inert and non-toxic, but don't eat it, okay? That's just not healthy at all. It does look like ice cream sometimes after you set it off, but resist that temptation. That should be an easy one there. So that basically covers the safety things that we have. Always refer to TDS, SDS, and have an SDS on site with you while you're pumping product in case there are any issues and paramedics are involved or whatnot. They can look at that real quick and see pretty much how innocuous polyurethane is, especially the single component stuff. So from there, well, let's go ahead and jump into talking about the pump. All right. This is a airless paint sprayer. Nothing fancy about that, all right? We're a Graco distributor, so we sell these pumps, and the only modifications you really need to them is we don't spray, we're pumping. So we put a high pressure ball valve and a connection on the end there. This is a button head connection, ideal for when you're doing probe grouting, that's where we preference. Some people like button heads better than a Zerk connector. Really that comes down to personal preference and the kind of job you're working on there. But either way, it's going to be a high pressure ball valve that comes out either, like I said, to a Zerk or a button head type connector there. Couple hand tools on site. Crescent wrenches are just nice and easy. You can adjust. Typically it's a little leak in your line there or a connection, something like that. But you have these ready so you can do any maintenance that you need or if you run into any trouble there. Let's look at the pump itself. So I said we did two things to modify it. One is we changed the gun out. Two is we remove the filter, if you even want to call that a modification. Filter goes right in here. We already have this filter pulled out. This should be hand tight. The filter assembly does not get tightened down, so don't tighten that down too much because we also use as an indicator when we're having trouble with our pump. And if we can't take it off by hand, that probably means that there's foam in there. All right, so it's good to have it nice and loose, and you can test that way. But ideally, if you follow all these steps, you're not going to have an issue with grouting your pump up. because this is not magic, this is science. It's a polymer and it reacts with water. So the only way for it to react inside the pump is for there to be water and product in the pump at the same time. We're going over on how to handle the pump and how to handle pump maintenance and the cleaning, so you don't ever end up in that scenario there. So we won't ever grout our pump up. I've been out to a contractor, and the maintenance guy in charge of the shop there was super excited to show me his 12-year-old airless paint sprayer that's still been pumping grout for 12 years there. All right, so it's very possible, but there are some maintenance items with the pump. One, right down here, you've got a ball check, all right? This ball check, when it strokes, the piston comes up, the ball comes up, and it's going to suck product in right here. All right, the piston's going to come back down, and it's going to push the product, try to push it right back out. Well, what's going to happen is that ball is going to come down and seat. Now it can't come out, so it's going to have to flow the other way, and that's coming out the hose, the injection there. That's what we want. Now, the little maintenance on that is every once in a while, that ball is going to get gummed up. That's not, hey, we didn't clean the pump properly or anything like that. That's just normal operation. It will start happening. How do you know when that's happening? Well, if you shut your ball valve, right away the pump shuts off. Boom, it's done, all right? If you shut your ball valve and the pump dials down, it kind of goes chkung, gets slower like that, that means this is starting to leak by. Doesn't necessarily mean you got to stop right then, but at the end of the day, you're going to have to do some maintenance. So it's about a 15-minute thing where you just pull this off and go ahead and you just mechanically clean up that little ball check in there. It's just a little ball bearing. Nothing complicated to that. Clean it off, you put that back in there, you're back in business. But like I said, I like to do it at the end of the day there, once I've already cleaned the pump, and then I can go through and open that up. So, real simple process with that. The pump does have a valve right here. This valve, if it's pointing down in line with the black, it goes to the prime line, all right? I don't like prime lines. Why? Why do I have this hatred of prime lines? Well, you don't need them. I use them as a health of the pump. I should be able to prime this pump without using a prime line. But the main reason with the prime line is if I do need the prime line to prime the pump, I've then pumped grout all through here, all right? This is open to air, and so then it starts going off. And you can see this pump has been around for quite some time. This is our shop pump. It gets abused. You can see we've got it open to the front here so you can see in. But you start filling this up, so then you start cutting it back each time. But again, the pump primes just fine without using the prime line, so I don't ever use it. Don't ever get into that, don't need it, and only save it for maybe an emergency situation or something like that. Here, we've got the dial. Sometimes the dials are right on here. The newer models have it on here. Depending on the model you get, it may even indicate your pressure ranges and stuff here. So we just dial it in. I like to start, for safety reasons, I like to keep it dialed all the way down, and then I keep the pump off. That's the switch right back here is the off on, all right? All right, so as I promised, we'd be talking about the pump, and yes, it is an airless paint sprayer. Nothing fancy about that. This is a Graco. This one is an old workhorse that we've had around the shop for quite some time here. There's newer models with fancier pieces on here, but it's all basically the same stuff inside here. So we have the front pulled off. You can see it's just a simple piston. We've got an electric motor back here, and this piston goes up and down. We have a little packing. The newer ones, like the 495 or the 395, this is a 390. The ones that end in 5 there, they have a replaceable head unit that you can just pop out and pop the new one in. Gosh, I'm trying to think of the pricing, but we can get you that pricing on there. But it's a simple thing if you need to rebuild out in the field. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. What modifications have we made for this paint sprayer so we can pump grout? Well, one, and the major one, is that we've replaced the the spray gun, with a ball valve, high pressure ball valve. And in this case, we've got a whip. You don't have to have a whip. You could have a hard pipe also. We have a whip here, and we have a button head connector. This setup is what we sell for our probe grouting. It's an ideal setup for probe grouting, works great for that. But you can also have a Zerk fitting on the end of here. And like I said, you can have a rigid connection. There's advantages to have flexible, there's also disadvantages to have flexible. And you'll see when I'm cleaning it, it's a little hard to operate this one-handed when it has the flexible hose on here. So the other thing that we've changed with the pump, and this is kind of a stretch to call it a modification, but all we've really done, this is the filter assembly right here. It's always hand tight. All right, we've gone and we've taken out the filter. All right, this is designed originally just to pump paints, which are very low viscosity. The grout we have is considered a very low viscosity grout, but when you compare that to paint, it's a bit thicker. All right, so we take that filter out just to make it a bit easier on the pump there. All right, so also on the pump, we've got this right here, this valve. Your one valve besides your injection gun there. And all this does is it cycles between the prime line and to pump, all right? So prime line, I've got the prime line pulled off to the side here. I don't like using the prime line, okay? The reason being is that I use it as a health of the pump indicator. This pump should easily be able to prime the cleaner and the grout, no problem, without using the prime line, all right? Well, Charlie, why not just use the prime line, not worry about that? Here's the deal. If I pump cleaner through the prime line, no big deal, whatever. But if you can't prime cleaner without it, your pump is not healthy and it's not going to do well when it tries to pump grout. You're probably not even going to be able to prime your grout without using the prime line then. Use the prime line to pump your grout, get your grout primed in there. You now have grout sitting in this all day. Let's say you got an 8-hour day out there. You have grout sitting in here and it's exposed. You can see someone's done that before here, and that's why we get some grout forming up here. How does grout go off? Single component polyurethane, all it needs water to activate. So when it's exposed to air, right now we're in Houston, it's, you know, it's normally 100% humidity. I don't know, it's probably 70 today. But either way, it's a plenty to kick our product off as it's been sitting there. So I try not to ever use the prime line, and like I said, it's really a health of the pump kind of thing. You know that you're starting to have trouble with your packers or your seals in here if you can't get that prime. What's the other reason you couldn't prime? Well, right here, this is kind of the heart of it. You know, we've got, actually here's the heart, but our piston going up and down, but it's the ball check. If we didn't have that ball check, all the piston would do is it would suck product right up in here, and then it'd push it right back down through here. So ball checks, the way they work is it's seated, and when it sucks up, it lifts that ball up in the fluid there, and it stops at a certain area. That's this little chamber right there. And that's drawn all the material out of the bucket. And now when it strokes down, it pushes material, but that ball check comes and it sits, and that locks it. So instead of coming back and forth through the suction line, it then has to push it out through the hose line here. All right, so that's the concept of a ball check. Now, with these pumps, if you operate them properly and take care of them, that we're going to be going through on this video, you should never really grout your pump up there. It's not magic, it is science. This is a polyurethane pre-polymer that requires water to go off. So if it's gone off in your pump, somehow you've gotten water and polymer in your pump at the same time. That's a big no-no, all right? So, and like I said, I'll go through the cleaning and how we prevent that from happening there. Okay, so we also have talked about, or excuse me, we need to talk about the power for the pump is right back here, and here we've got the dial. Whenever I start the pump up, I keep it dialed down and I have the pump turned off. So then the first thing I'll do is I'll turn the pump on, and then I'll dial it up to the pressures I need. This way, I don't over pressurize or have any of those types of issues. It's a safety thing out there. And we also, when we're pumping, we try to keep this locked in at one pressure. That way we can listen to the pump, and that helps us see through the wall there. That allows us to understand if our grout is having an impact. Because if we're pumping at a certain speed and then the pump is slowing down and we haven't adjusted this, that means we're now getting more back pressure. And that's what we're typically trying to do. We're trying to fill a crack, a void, or a defect, permeation grouting, but we're looking typically for some back pressure. And there you go. So we have talked about everything besides the suction, and I'll get into this some. Right now we've got the suction head off of here. Some people like to grout straight from the container there. Some people like to pour it into a bucket, especially when you're activating the product. You're going to pour it into a bucket. You're going to want to have one of these on there, the little strainers. They can get gummed up. That's a lot of surface area. It doesn't take much exposure to air for those to gum up. So it's kind of a replaceable part, but they're dirt cheap. You can pick them up pretty much anywhere. All right, so now we're getting to the meat and potatoes. This is the exciting part where we're going to show you how to clean the pump, charge the pump, prime the pump with product, and then do a final clean at the end of the day there. All right, so for this scenario, we're going to assume that we used the grout pump yesterday. All right, we did the final clean on it yesterday afternoon. It is now the next morning. We're coming back to continue on our job, whether it's curtain grouting, an elevator pit, a parking garage, a residential basement, or maybe even crack injection. There's tons of different things that we could be working on here. But whatever the case is, we've shown up, we're ready. Are we ready? We've got our pump, it was cleaned yesterday, right? So we know it's fully cleaned, so we should just be able to charge it with our grout. No, I set you up for that one, that's not right. All right, why isn't that right? Well, let's look at the pump here. We talked about that ball check, right? And we talked about our ball valve right here. That's our closed system. We have cleaner between this ball valve all the way to this ball check. Yeah, exactly. What about this? This is open to air, all right? It's a nice metal tube here. Gets nice and cold in the morning. You have a good humid morning, if I could talk. There we go. And that's going to potentially put some moisture droplets inside here. All right, so you don't want to go ahead and just stick this down into the grout there because, well, we're water activated. We only need about 4 to 7% water by volume to go off. All right, and when you look at the size in this pump, what's 4 to 7% of that? That's not much. All right, so what we do first thing is we're going to clean the pump. But we already cleaned the pump, so we're really just cleaning this area here. So all we're going to do, get our fancy bucket cleaner. There we are. We're going to get our cleaner here. I don't like pumping from the cleaner pail. The reason being is I don't want to cross-contaminate. I don't want to end up getting grout in here. All right? We wouldn't do it in this scenario because everything's clean, but at the end of the day, if you stick it in here, you're going to have problems with that. So I'm going to pour a little grout off here. Got my safety glasses on, got my skin protection on. There we go. Pour a little bit in there. And not much, that probably should do it. I close up the cleaner right away. What you didn't see is that I had wiped this off before. Sometimes they're dirty, been sitting down in a warehouse and back of a truck or whatnot. You don't want to be dropping a bunch of dirt into there because, well, first off, that's dirt. But the other thing is, dirt can contain moisture. We're not trying to have any moisture get in here. So then I take something, whether it's gloves, any little bottle, anything like that, I tilt it to the side. So now I've just got enough product just to have my suction down in there. I haven't used much cleaner at all. All right, so let's go ahead. I'm going to open up first. Now remember earlier I talked about there's pros and cons to having this little whip. One of the cons is it does make it kind of hard to operate single-handedly while you're holding that. Right now there's no pressure. When there's pressure here, if you just open that and you're not holding the whip, that whip will whip around just like the name. So you want to make sure you're holding that when you open the whip. But I have that full open right now. So, and remember as I said before, I start with my pump off and pump dialed down. So now I'm going to turn my pump on and I am going to go ahead and I've checked. If you see that it is in line with your blue hose, that's for grouting. If I pointed it down, that would be for my prime. I'm not using my prime. We talked about that before. So I've got this dialed all the way down. I've turned it on. I'm holding this. I'm pointing to the side of the bucket. Why am I doing that? Well, it's that whole Newton's law thing that, every force has an equal and opposite force. So if I shoot straight at the bottom of the bucket, guess what? It comes straight back up out of me. We don't want that. Even though I'm wearing eye protection, I'd like not to have to use it. So let's dial it up. You're listening to your pump, all right? We're not pumping anything. Now we're seeing just a little bit. See the hose start shaking? We've primed this pump. We're good. I'm just recircing. We're letting the cleaner, the pump wash, take any moisture that could have been in here and just pump it through. You hear that burp? That's the air that was originally in here. So we've now we've completed a cycle here. I'm going to give it about 30 seconds right around there. And then we'll know we're good to go. All right? We do something very similar at the end of the day, but we do that right after we pumped a full gallon of it. So here we go. We're letting that go. Our pump's chugging along. And we are good to go there. So I go ahead and just turn that off. All right. So let me pull this back out, shut my valve. I'm gonna dial my pump down. All right. And because I turned it off first, I don't have any pressure built up in here, all right? That's a safety thing. You want to be careful when you open these, especially if it's under pressure. All right. Speaking of which, though, I don't like ever having the ball valve half open, especially when I'm pumping grout there, because it gives us false indications. You can open it nice and slow, but I like to have a full open or full closed valve when I do it. Preference thing, but I think it makes a lot of sense there. All right. So we are primed. Now, I don't want to pull this thing out of the liquid, out of our cleaner, until I'm ready to go ahead and prime with, I apologize, I said we were primed before. We are cleaned and ready to prime. So now I'm going to go ahead and bring my grout over. Right before I do that, there's a couple different ways. So let's say I'm on a job site where I'm going to be using activator, all right? Our 24-120 comes with 0.05% activator in there, all right? That's minimal, but it's plenty to kick it off, and oftentimes for permeation grouting, curtain grouting, you want it to go off as slow as possible. So you can just pump this straight away without any activator to it, and that's the majority of the way we do it, especially for like seawalls and that type of work. But let's say you need it to go off faster. You've got some high flows, you're dealing with cold water, you want to counteract that. This is where I like to use a separate pail, and I line it with a 3 mil garbage bag, all right? I'll then pour my grout into there, pour my activator into there, and then I just take it and I can pull it up a little bit, and by hand, I can just hand mix that grout there with the activator or the catalyst, all right? What does that do for me? Well, I'm not sticking a paddle mixer in there. First off, I don't think you should ever use a paddle mixer to mix polyurethane grouts there. Reason being is that they're going to go too fast and you're going to entrain air in it. What does air have? Moisture, humidity, all right? And now, boom, we're kicking off all our product, all right? The other thing is paddle mixers, once you use them once, they've got some epoxy on there, they've got some cementitious material, they're dirty, all right? And they're costly. The bag, we don't even have to have a clean bucket. You put this bag in there, it doesn't matter what's in your bucket. Let's say you're on the job site and you ask one of your laborers for a clean bucket and they only have dirty ones there. Well, what are they going to do? They're going to go over, get some water and a rag and wipe it all out for you. And they're going to hand you this wet bucket that we're going to put water activated product into. No good. The bag does so many things for us. The last thing that it does is that when you have your suction in there, you can pull that up right around and wrap it around your suction. So if you're in a wet environment, which oftentimes for leak seal you're in a dam gallery or something like that, or you're working in the rain, you can protect your grout and keep it covered like that. It's just really easy to handle. That's my preference. I think that's a safer way. There are numerous contractors, they will pump straight from the pail. It's not a wrong thing. It's that I'm on the side where I get asked all these different questions, what went wrong or whatnot, and so you're risking a little more. I also don't like the fact that I can't just look in there and kind of see what's going on. But what I have done on job sites is I put a big light behind here, and then I can easily see my level. So that gives me a little more indication of what's going on in there. I've already opened these, so I could hand open it real quick here, and I've vented the back here. So I am not going to pour this into a bucket. I'm going to pump straight from here. Now, at this point, I've left the suction in the cleaner up until this last moment. So I'm going to pull it out. And you're going to see it's running a little bit. We're going to let that drain some. You don't need to get it perfect. You could have a drip or two, but we just don't want to pour a bunch of cleaner into there. And there we go. I'm going to move this over. And I'm going to stick this in. All right. So, got our cleaner. I'm going to put that to the side right now. And let me get my trash bucket. I keep my trash and cleaner labeled because at the beginning of the day, this little bit of cleaner looks very similar to the trash, and it can get confusing. So I like labeling. You get out in the field, it's amazing. I mean, I can be the only one down in a manhole, and I don't know where my tools are. So keeping organized on the job site, that's important. Okay, so we've got this open. We're going to go ahead. We're going to bring this back over here. Like I said, I'm going to pre-open this. Here we go, holding, because I have the whip, I got to hold it. I've opened it, but nothing happens. Why? Because we'd already relieved the pressure. So as to be expected. All right, so I'm gonna come over here. I'm dialed down, turn that on, and I'm gonna start pumping. So we're here to go, then see the pause. All right, so now it's gotta suck that air through. Look, we're starting to jump again. Watch, come on. There, we're starting to jump again. We're getting primed, all right? Again, no use to the prime line. No need for that at all. I'm spraying liquid, the cleaner right now, but you'll see the spray will turn into a solid line there. It's starting to burp, and it's gonna turn into the grout. Here we go. And there we have a nice grout stream. So there you go. We have primed the pump. We are ready to go. I don't ever recommend priming your pump until you have your job site, you've already got it ready, and you have a couple holes ready so you can start pumping right away. All right? With that said, we're not going into any demos on this. We have other demo videos out there. We're just focusing on the safety and maintenance of this single component pump here. So we are now going to move forward to the end of the day. That was a quick and easy, one of the quick and easiest work days I've ever had. All right, so we're good there. Let's go ahead. Now we've got our trash bucket. This trash bucket's gonna end up as a mixture of pump wash and also grout, all right? The grout, afterwards we're gonna add just a little bit of water and that'll kick the foam off there. Foam you can throw away, there's no disposal. For the pump wash, that disposal is per your state and local code there. It's clear on the SDS, the information on that, and that's how you'd handle. That's the only thing that requires a special disposal. You don't ever want to throw away raw grout. You'd have to fill out tons of forms, pay all kinds of money and stuff like that. If you set the grout off, it's then the same as throwing away a seat cushion. It's foam, it's inert, it's non-toxic. There's no disposal for that. So that's how people dispose of any leftover grout there. And if you had your garbage bag, that's just super easy. You just throw a little water in there and throw that garbage bag into the trash, you're done there. All right, so now I've got my trash here. I'm gonna have to get my cleaner, do a little ballet grouting dance right here, move it all around on the table. Normally I'm working on the ground, so you have a little bigger surface area, more real estate to work with. All right, so I'm gonna pull this out, and again, just like we saw with the cleaner, we're gonna let it run a little bit. Grout's thicker than cleaner, all right? This is around 100 centipoise or so there. So we're gonna let that kind of drain off some. All right, and I have some cleaner left in here. So I'm gonna go ahead and stick this down into that. You're gonna dribble just a little bit, but let's see if I can minimize that. There we go, perfect. One little drip on the side there. Now, I will quickly go ahead and close this up. There we are. You do, you want to wipe those threads. I don't have a rag right here, I apologize. You want to wipe these threads before you put this back on. I'll do that right after this video, because if you don't, that grout will kind of set up in there and make it very difficult for you to get the top off. All right, now I'm going to pour about a gallon, all right? You could probably get away with a little bit less, and really it's your hose length that makes the difference on there. The longer the hose, the more cleaner you're gonna need to push it all the way through there. But I find a gallon is 100% in the safe zone. You flush with a gallon, you're not gonna have any issues. But let's go over how we do that. So, first step to that is getting a gallon in there. Now, we don't want any fights on the job site. Well, Charlie, the grout geek said a gallon. You know, we need to measure this exactly. I don't like using really any measuring cups or anything out there in the field because they get covered with grout and they're disposable. If you're required to for the job site, yes, measure exactly. But normally it's just eyeballing, all right? So I've got about a gallon in here. We're good with that. And it's very simple that way. Even when I add catalyst, oftentimes, it's just an eyeball thing out there. But that's the purview of another video here. So let's get back to this cleaning. All right, so same thing. I'm gonna go ahead and kick this up to the side. And if you do have any grout that's in your cleaner, go ahead and move your suction around while we're pumping, and that way you can suck that out right away. So Let me move my cleaner out of the way and move my trash bucket back here. Again, I'm going to open. There we are, a little grout dripping out there. I've got it down. I'm maintaining control of that. I've got my pump dialed down, turn it on. Kind of repeating myself, right? Repetition helps. Okay. You can hear it loses suction, then it picks us back up. We're pumping grout. You'll hear it burp, you'll see it burp. There's the burp. We're getting all that air out that was in here. So, now I'm at the point where it looks like cleaner. And this is where you often would have people just stop. Oh, I've cleaned it already. If you leave residual grout in there, you can grout your pump up, okay? But if you only leave just a tiny bit, it'll form a skin in your hose. And then while you're pumping later on, grouting stuff, that skin will come loose and block your gun, all right? So I've found over the years that 1 gallon is the ideal way. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pump this down enough, and I'm almost there. I'm gonna pump it down to where it's just at the bottom, just like I did at the beginning of the day. Just a little bit of just enough to cover the suction. So I've got that pump down now. Turn that off there, and you heard how the pump pretty much just shut down right away. That means that our ball check is in good health there. All right, now I'm gonna do just like we started the day with, all right? I'm gonna come over here, I'm gonna stick this down in here, I'm gonna open back up, and I'm gonna recirc for a little bit, all right? About 30 seconds again. And then when I'm done recircing, I'll look, and as long as my cleaner looks like cleaner, I'm good to go. If I've got yellow or any polyurethane floating around in there, I'll go ahead and do either a half gallon or another gallon, make sure I've flushed it really well. But I have rarely ever seen a time where I need to do that a second time. It's been super rare. Matter of fact, I think it's been once or twice, the only times I've ever seen that. Now, don't be worried that when you're doing this, you're gonna have a bit of a head there. It's gonna be frothy from being sprayed there. That's not grout, that's not our foam going off. That's just air bubbles. Let me go ahead and get this turned off. All right, there we go. And you see what I'm saying? It's a bit hard to operate the whip ball valve with one hand there. But like I said, when you're doing probe grouting, typically have it hooked onto a probe, and it makes it very easy because then you've got this on there. All right, so I'll go ahead and turn that off. I'm gonna dial down my pump. Now I'm gonna come over here, pointing down in the bucket again. I'm gonna open, you hear that little burst, and now I'm gonna close. All I'm doing is relieving the pressure in case the ball valve gets bumped or something like that. We don't have any high pressure cleaner coming out. Again, this is just our pump wash. Now we are good to go. There is nothing else I need to do with this pump. Well, I guess besides pull it out of the cleaner. There we go. All right, so we are good to go. This pump is ready, and if we need to start tomorrow morning, we can go ahead and start. So, common questions. What if I take a lunch break? Do I need to clean the pump in between that? No, you do not, all right? The pump, the grout is in a closed system here, all right? I've had a time where I've been on a job site and we had to evacuate the job site, not due to grouting, something else was going on the job site, and we had to evacuate. We literally left the grout gun hooked up to the packer. We turned the pump off and we left. That's all we did. We showed up the next morning, turned the pump on, and continued pumping, all right? It's a closed system. The grout doesn't go off. If you've cleaned everything, you're not gonna have any issues like that. Do I recommend leaving grout in your pump overnight? No, not at all, not at all. That's not appropriate. But like I said, for lunch, you don't have any issue. There's no pot life that we're looking at. If we're not exposed to moisture, it's not gonna go off. So don't worry about that there. All right, so we've talked about the Graco, this is a 390, but the 395 or 495, and how we've converted that over and made that our workhorse single component grouting pump there. We talked about the ball valve for it, talked about the safety, and we talked about the handling of the products there. Remember, for safety, the biggest thing is eye protection. All right, well with that said, I'm Charlie Lerman with NCFI, the Grout Geek. Thank you very much.